Hard to imagine today, in the 60s, Rivonia was practically all farmland. When the ANC was outlawed at the start of that decade, they decamped to this property outside Goldberg, owned by the then banned Communist Party. These days, Liliesleaf is a remarkable high-tech museum that recreates that history, and central to it coming into being is Nicholas Wolpe, the son of one of the principal players.
On this map are some of the names of the people that came to Liliesleaf and who were either engaged in liberation activities or took refuge here, like Nelson Mandela, Walter Sisulu, Dennis Goldberg, Governor Mbeki. Here we have my father, Harold Wolpe, who in fact was the lawyer that did all the legal conveyancing for the purchase of the farm, and he actually came here because he was head of military intelligence. And what I wanted to do was to ensure that a unique historical site like Liliesleaf did not fade from the socio-political landscape, that the stories themselves were told in a dynamic, interactive fashion that people could interact with and utilize technology like this, which enabled them to link with the stories.
One of the lives that reached a crossroads here was that of Dennis Goldberg, an engineer who wanted to build dams, roads and railways. In true engineering style, he first set about assisting with the political problem and ultimately got to work for the Ministry of Water Affairs and Forestry in a post-apartheid South Africa. Now retired but still an active social campaigner, the museum tells his story too.
This is amazing. It's like a giant computer screen.
Well, effectively it is. I mean, this is our interactive table. What is lovely about it is, in fact, that we've won 2 awards. We've won a Lurie and we've won an International Multimedia Award in America. It's very dynamic. It's one of the kind of in the world today. It is interesting, it captivates people's attention, and because they are able to interact with it, they have a lot of fun.
But it's my history as well. I was here, I slept here, and here it is on a giant screen. I wish I could have it at home. I'd live my life all over again every day.
The exhibit has screens that read like digital books, telephones that ring when approached, telling stories of spying and intrigue. And never mind the walls having ears, in this place even the drawers talk.
Every room has its own IT system. Sometimes you walk in and there's a voice playing, a speech by Chief Tertullian. Open a drawer and you hear me talking about that time. It's very clever.
Some of the original buildings still exist, and there are trees that were here 50 years ago as Nelson Mandela arrived and took on the identity of a gardener, calling himself David Mutsomadi. Here in this room was where he lived, and some of his writings were hidden in the coal shed.
Well, here we are in the room Nelson Mandela lived in, underground, hiding from the police. And now it's been reconstructed of the original bricks, and where they haven't got the bricks, they've used concrete and so on. But it looks neat and tidy. It was a ramshackle room, and here was this lawyer who dressed in the most elegant clothes, came and lived here, and he chose to live here because the cause was so important. There was no sacrifice too big. Imagine living in this just on your own. Of course, Nelson did a lot of studying and reading, and have a look at this table where he used to work. And it's got the last paragraph of that famous speech of his in the Rivonia trial. It ends, "It is an ideal for which I have lived. It is an ideal for which I still hope to live and see achieved. But if needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die."
I see a little bit scratched out here.
That's because our attorney, Joel Joffe, was worried that it was too much of a challenge to the judge and took it out, and Nelson Mandela put it back in again. But George Bezos said, if you add the words, "if needs be," that would soften it a bit.
The outhouse buildings on Liliesleaf housed the printing presses which got the message of freedom out there. They wrote a number of broadcasts for Radio Freedom and tested the radio too.
African life in South Africa.
Then just as they had their strategy in place, the security police caught up with them.
Well, here we are in the thatched cottage where the meeting, Walter Sisulu, Governor Mbeki, Raymond Mhlaba and others were discussing Operation My Booya. This was supposed to be the last meeting to take place here at Liliesleaf Farm, Rivonia, and it was one meeting too many because that's when the police raided.
How different do you think things could have been if the plan actually did go through?
Well, maybe we would have defeated them quickly instead of it taking 30 years. But given the forces that were ranged against us, I suspect we would have been arrested pretty soon. And having taken the decision to go ahead with this armed uprising, producing weapons, training people, I think we might have got death sentences.
So it all worked out the way it was supposed to, you think?
Well, put it this way, I'm rather pleased that we got life sentences and not death sentences. I mean, I've seen the birth of the new South Africa. And to come to Liliesleaf and see the recording of the history in such a magnificent way, it's so exciting for me because I see the history and I see what we've achieved, and we've got so much more to do, and I'm confident that if we could overthrow apartheid, we can build a new South Africa, and we're doing it.
This was the picture the Rivonia trialists held in their minds for their lengthy incarceration. And it's what has made Liliesleaf such an important part of our South African heritage.